I'll wish to refer to the Chancellor's comments and their supplementary or topical questions. I will take a more liberal view of the scope of supplementary questions than is usually the case. I now, and of course the spokesperson for Liberal Democrats as well, I now call the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as you say, I would like to make some brief remarks on the current economic situation. Mr. Speaker, the United States' decision to impose tariffs has had and will continue to have huge implications for the world economy. These implications have been reflected in the reaction that we have seen in global markets in recent days, which the financial authorities have, of course, been monitoring closely. This morning I spoke to the Governor of the Bank of England, who has confirmed that markets are functioning effectively and that our banking system is resilient. I know too that this is an anxious time for families who are worried about the cost of living. We have your backs. And British businesses who are worried about what a changing world will mean for them, we have your backs too. This government is clear-eyed that our response to global change cannot be to watch and wait, but instead to act decisively, to take the right decisions that are in our national interest, protecting working people. All of the decisions that we make as a government will be underpinned by the stability of our non-negotiable fiscal rules. Mr. Speaker, a trade war is in nobody's interest. It is why we must remain pragmatic, cool-headed and pursue the best deal with the United States that is in our national interest. This remains our priority, and that was part of the discussion that I had with US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent last week. But we have been clear, nothing is off the table. It is why we will continue to back British businesses during these uncertain times, particularly those industries that are most affected, as we rebuild our industrial base here in Britain. We showed that backing yesterday when the Prime Minister and I announced new measures to give British car makers certainty, stability and to support them on the transition to electric vehicles. We have put forward plans to support our life sciences sector by cutting back the time it will take to set up clinical trials in the UK. It is why we are working with our international allies to reduce barriers to trade right across the world. Over recent days, I have had discussions with my counterparts in Canada, Australia, Ireland, France, Spain and France, and with the European Commission. We will pursue these talks in earnest. Tomorrow I will hold talks with the Indian government as part of our two nations' economic and financial dialogue as we seek to secure a new trade deal with India. And finally, we must go further and faster in our mission to kickstart economic growth. I know that the challenges facing the global economy and the potential impact could be profound. And as a government, we must step up to that challenge to deliver security for working people through our plan for change that is underpinned by stability, reform and investment. Prioritising the builders, not the blockers. Reforming our public services, not defending the status quo. Investing in our long-term infrastructure, not cutting it for the short term. Security for working people. Renewal for Britain. That is our focus, and Mr. Speaker, that is what this government will deliver.
Shadow Chancellor Mellström.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and could I thank the Right Honourable Lady for the advance notice of her comments. Mr. Speaker, this is a time of great concern for millions of people up and down our country, for businesses, and as an open trading nation, for our economy at large. Free trade has been the bedrock of prosperity for our country and many countries around the world for decades. It has raised billions out of poverty. Tariffs are the enemy of free trade, and we on this side of the House will do whatever we can to assist the government in getting those tariffs down. Having said that, of course, we will never cease becoming an effective opposition, vigorously holding them to account, not least on the disastrous decisions that they have taken already in respect of our economy. But we will be responsible when it comes to these matters, particularly where market sensitivities are engaged. Could I ask the Right Honourable Lady the following? Firstly, could she provide further details of the US negotiations, and specifically whether further meetings with Scott Bessent and others have been arranged that involve herself? Secondly, what areas beyond tariffs are being discussed in those negotiations? Thirdly, what sectors beyond cars and life sciences that the Right Honourable Lady made reference to are being considered for potential government support? And finally, could she update the House on what options there are for protecting sectors of the economy which may be affected by the dumping of goods as a consequence of trade diversion?
I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for that response and also for his offer to work constructively. I think that in my time as Shadow Chancellor, those moments when we can work constructively in the national interest, whether that was in the response to COVID or indeed in supporting Ukraine against the aggression of Russia, it is when this House is at its best, when we work together in the national interest. The Shadow Chancellor asked for further details in a number of areas. Discussions are ongoing across a range of government departments, including the Treasury, with the United States, and I will be meeting US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent shortly. Beyond tariffs, of course, we are discussing a range of different areas, but the focus is on reducing tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, with a particular focus on those sectors that are subject to the higher tariffs. Because although the 10% tariffs are lower than many other countries around the world, and we welcome that, the additional tariffs on cars, on steel, and potentially on life sciences pose a real challenge to our country, because those are some of our biggest export markets. It's why we made the announcements that we made yesterday, but in those sectors, automotives, life sciences and steel, we will continue to take the action that is necessary, working in partnership with business and also with trade unions to make sure that we are addressing those issues. We are also using institutions like the British Business Bank, the National Wealth Fund and UK Export Finance to help businesses through these times. The Shadow Chancellor also mentioned concerns around dumping. We, of course, are working with international colleagues around the world to understand those implications. But our first priority is not to create more trade barriers, but to reduce the ones that exist today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People up and down the country will be incredibly concerned about what Trump's trade war means for their living standards and for their communities as well. But at the same time, people want to show that Britain is not going to take Donald Trump's trade tariffs lying down. We welcome the Chancellor's announcement that the government will be working further and faster with our allies abroad, and I would ask the Chancellor to confirm that any new trade deals will be brought before this House for a vote before they are ratified. But, Mr. Speaker, at the same time, what I want to ask the Chancellor is whether, at the same time as working with our allies abroad to create new export markets, will the Chancellor and the government commit to a Buy British campaign as part of a broader national effort to encourage people to buy British here at home?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for those questions. This is a time for pragmatism and cool heads, and not a Russia response. We are working closely with business. My right honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, announced in the House last week a call for evidence in terms of the response that business are looking for, because ratcheting up barriers to trade, ratcheting up tariffs will not be in our country's interest, whether that's in inflation or indeed for supply chains. So I think we do need to have cool heads and think about the national interest, not knee-jerk reactions. In terms of doing deals with other countries around the world, that is something we're very much focused on. There's the EU-UK summit on the 18th of May. We are hosting the Economic and Financial Dialogue with Minister Sitaraman coming to London today for those conversations, and those discussions are ongoing with a number of countries. Of course, any treaties would be brought forward for ratification by this House. In terms of buying British, I think every everyone will make their own decisions. What we don't want to see is a trade war with Britain becoming inward-looking, because if every country in the world decided that they only wanted to buy things produced in their country, that is not a good way forward. Our country has benefited hugely from access to global markets, and we will continue to want to be able to do that, because that is in our national interest for working people and for businesses in this country.
To questions, Paul Wall.
Question number one, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, closing the tax gap and making sure everyone is paying the tax they owe is one of the government's top priorities. The budget in autumn marked a step change in ambition to close the tax gap with the most ambitious package ever. The government built on this at Spring Statement, taking the total additional gross tax revenue raised per year to £7.5 billion by 29/30.
Paul Wall.
Speaker, the UK tax gap grew by a shocking £5 billion in 2023 in the dying days of the Conservatives, and former Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi was actually sacked for failing to declare an HMRC investigation into his own tax affairs. So can I welcome the Treasury's crackdown on tax avoidance? And does he agree that the Labour's prudence with a purpose will be shown by investing those taxes in child poverty strategy this summer?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his remarks, and he's right to say that the £7.5 billion of additional revenue from closing the tax gap is, of course, a huge boost to the public finances, which enables us to responsibly fund public services and deliver key priorities. Those priorities include, of course, free breakfast clubs at all primary schools in England, the first 750 of which are beginning this month via our early adopter scheme, worth £450 to children's parents and carers. To go further, the government will bring forward its comprehensive child poverty strategy as soon as possible.
The steps the government is taking to address concerns of overseas companies evading VAT on online sales by fraudulently registering UK addresses.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and at Spring Statement he will have seen the government set out progress on autumn budget measures to tackle a range of sources of tax avoidance and of the tax gap. That includes, of course, prosecuting more fraudsters, introducing a new HMRC reward scheme for informants, tackling phoenicism, and, of course, tackling the offshore non-tax tax gap. The offshore non-compliance tax gap.
Deirdre Costigan.
Question number two, Mr. Speaker.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Growth is the number-one priority of this government, and that is why at the autumn budget and at the Spring Statement we unlocked an additional £113 billion for capital spending compared with the plans that we inherited from the previous government. Yesterday we announced significant support both for the automotive sector and life sciences. And ahead of the spending review in June, we've announced the rollout of additional 60,000 places in construction skills so we can build the homes and the infrastructure that our country desperately needs.
Deirdre Costigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To drive progress on our growth mission and get the most out of taxpayers' money, it's vital that departments work collaboratively and not at odds with each other. So can the Chancellor outline how she is promoting cross-departmental working and planning as part of the spending review?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and the Chief Secretary is working closely with colleagues in a constructive way to bring together clusters of colleagues to discuss some of the pressing issues that span across government departments that no one government department can address on its own, whether that is SEND reform for early years or indeed tackling issues around homelessness and the cost of temporary accommodation. So we're working cross-government to address some of these cross-cutting issues.
The Chancellor's absolutely right to focus on increasing economic growth. So please can she explain to me why my office is still waiting on a response on behalf of a small business to a letter I sent on the 12th of December asking her to look into the impact of her national insurance rise on small businesses. We asked for an update on the 11th of February. I raised a point of order on the 10th of March and I still haven't had a response. Please can she get a response to me as soon as possible?
I will follow up on that issue, but for the smallest businesses, those employing the equivalent of 4 people on the national living wage will be paying no national insurance at all from this April. So for the smallest businesses, up to 1 million businesses, they'll be paying less or the same national insurance to what they were paying previously.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Since the spring statement, the world has been rocked by the announcements by President Trump on tariffs last week. It's an event that is as significant as the financial crisis of 2008, or indeed, perhaps as COVID. In those instances, the state unleashed everything it could to try and resolve those issues. Is the Chancellor considering changing any of her rules in order to make sure that everything that the state can throw at this problem is being done?
I think it is incredibly important to retain cool heads at this moment. Tariffs have been imposed, and we are working closely with our friends and counterparts in the United States to reduce the impact on those, not just in the UK, but around the world as well. At the same time, as I said in my opening remarks, we're looking to secure better trading relationships with some of our biggest trading partners around the world. Of course, as we did yesterday, we are looking at some of the sectoral responses on life sciences, on automotives, on steel as well. But the fiscal rules are very important for giving our country the stability it needs. We saw what happened when the previous government lost control of the public finances. It resulted in interest rates going through the roof, meaning higher costs for businesses and for working families. We won't make those mistakes. That's why the fiscal rules are non-negotiable, and stability for this government is sacrosanct.
Tim Farron.
Mr. Speaker, isn't now absolutely the right time to start trying to make our own look? And in that light, wouldn't this also be the right time for the Chancellor to give the green light to the upgrade to the A66 between Penrith and Scotch Corner? This is an A road where 25% of all the traffic is freight. That's twice the average for A roads across the country. Outrageous that so much of that is single carriageway. So wouldn't this be great for the economy as well as saving lives if she gave that a green light today?
Impressive. So we'll be considering all of these schemes as part of the spending review, but I absolutely do agree with the honourable gentleman that we need to go further and faster to grow our economy. That's why we are spending £113 billion more on capital investment in this Parliament compared to the plans that we inherited, which means that we can upgrade more roads, more rail lines, more energy infrastructure, and build the 1.5 million homes our country needs too.
Shadow Minister Richard Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 weeks ago, the spring statement rushed through changes to disability benefits, or pocket money, to the Chief Secretary to help plug the £14 billion gap in public finances created by the first Labour budget. Now we are already in the OBR's scenario 2 on tariffs, and the Chancellor is once again forecast to be out of room on her fiscal targets. Therefore, how does she plan to ask the Chief Secretary to update departmental budgets in his multi-year spending review to avoid punishing businesses and people once again with further taxes?
I think the honourable gentleman is somewhat jumping the gun. We delivered the spring statement just 2 weeks ago, and we were able to restore the fiscal headroom in that after the change in global bond yields. We will set out the budget in the autumn, moving to one fiscal event a year, very, very different from the multiple budgets we had from the previous government. But we've set the spending totals for the spending review, and we'll be setting out the departmental allocations on June the 11th.
Andrew George.
Question 3, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while short-term lets and second homes can benefit the tourist economy, we also recognise that they can impact the availability and affordability of main homes in some communities. That is why we have enabled councils to charge a premium of up to 100% on the council tax bills of second homes, why we have increased the higher rates of stamp duty land tax on the purchase of second homes, and we have abolished the furnished holiday lets tax regime.
Andrew George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to the Minister for that response, but I believe we can go further. This isn't about the politics of envy, but the politics of social justice. Sure, it cannot be right that, for example, in Cornwall, over £500 million of taxpayers' money through the small business rate relief system has gone into the pockets of holiday homeowners in the last 10 years, and many of those have indeed flipped their second homes into the small business rating system in order to take advantage of the loophole. Would the Minister be prepared to meet with me so that we can find a more equitable way of spending public money which goes into first homes rather than second homes?
Hear, hear.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his remarks then, and I do agree with him very much on the importance of taking the right action to tackle second homes. I understand he had a meeting with the Minister for Housing and Planning last week, and I'd be happy to follow up any items which arose from that. I would also add that as part of our plan to build more homes, that includes 4,500 new homes every year in Cornwall, and I hope he'll support those building plans too.
Jane Kirkham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to add my voice as an MP from Cornwall to say that some of the actions the government has taken so far on second homes have been really helpful. And of course, the Renters' Rights Bill will help with those evictions when people are flipping their houses. I would also ask that we look at the loophole between council tax and business rates, and of course that registration or licensing scheme on second homes, which the government will hopefully be bringing in soon.
Minister. Well, I thank my honourable friend for her comments as well, and I appreciate the concerns, Mr. Speaker, that second homeowners may move to the business rate system. I would emphasise that there are requirements which must be met before properties can be assessed for business rates, and these have recently been strengthened, but of course we will keep that under review.
Dr. Rupert.
Mr. Speaker, number 4, please.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister have set out our ambitions to build 1.5 million homes this Parliament as part of our plan for change. At the spring statement, I announced steps towards this ambition with an additional £2 billion investment in social and affordable housing next year as a down payment on further investment at the spending review in June.
Dr. Rupert.
I welcome the Chancellor's build, build, build policy. But with £4 million a day being the cost of temporary housing in London, soaring rents and a frozen local housing allowance, no wonder London councils fear going bankrupt and having to rehouse people from outside the capital where only 5% of homes are affordable. So can my right honourable friend, in the comprehensive spending review, look into possibly uprating this stingy Tory legacy so that Londoners aren't forced out of London?
Yeah.
The key thing we need to do is build the homes our country desperately needs. That's why I put £600 million of investment into creating 60,000 additional places for people to learn the construction skills, good jobs, paying decent wages, building the homes that we need. And it's also why we're reforming the planning system so that we can actually get those homes built, backing the builders, not the blockers, which is what the party opposite did.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the weekend, The Times revealed the problems in the retirement housing market, both in terms of new builds but also with resales, with many constituents of mine in mid-Sussex experiencing a loss on the houses or flats that they've inherited. Does the Chancellor consider that the housing market is adequately providing decent, affordable homes for those who are downsizing as well as for first-time buyers?
Very good.
Thank the Honourable Lady for that question. I'll be very happy to arrange a meeting for her with the relevant minister to discuss some of those specific issues around those retirement properties. But the Honourable Lady makes a really important point that we do need to make it easier for people to downsize, to free up those properties, including in the private sector, so there's more homes available for families.
The food.
Number 5, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Securing economic growth across the country is the government's #1 mission, and we're working in partnership with the Mayor of the North East, providing the North East Combined Authority with an integrated funding settlement from 26-27 and working with them on their local growth plan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Combined Authority has identified a key growth corridor sweeping across my constituency, but a historic lack of investment to upgrade the Moor Farm and Seaton Burn roundabouts causes relentless disruption. It holds back growth, investment, opportunity. There's a business plan, it's in the North East Growth Plan and Road Investment Strategy. Does the Minister agree that this is exactly the sort of scheme this Labour government should support to boost economic growth in every region?
Yeah. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Government is committed to improving roads. We agreed a £4.8 billion settlement for national highways and funded a £500 million uplift for local roads in this financial year. Funding for the RIS3 programme that she mentioned will be considered in phase 2 of the spending review, and I'd encourage her to continue to engage with the Roads Minister on this issue.
I presume Mr Lamont thinks it's North East Scotland rather than North East of England. John Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This government decided to cancel the A1 upgrade, which will harm the economy not just in the North East of England, but in the south of Scotland. What economic impact assessment did the government take before deciding to cancel this vital road link?
Nice try. In terms of North East growth, I've already said that we're working very closely with the Mayor of the North East, and I suggest that he asks questions about roads in transport questions relevant to his part of the country.
I now call the Minister to answer Alistair Carmichael's question on the potential impact of changes to the agricultural property relief and business property relief on farmers, which was omitted in error from the earlier versions of the order paper. So can I... Alistair Carmichael.
Speaker.
Oh, right.
Sir. Yes. Right, thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, as the Minister with responsibility for the UK tax system, I have had several meetings with organisations on this matter since the autumn budget last year. On February the 18th, the Minister for Food Security, Rural Affairs and I met with the National Farmers Union, the Tenant Farmers Association, the Country Land and Business Association, the Central Association of Agricultural Valuers, Ulster's Farmers Union, NFU Cymru, NFU Scotland and the Farmers Union of Wales.
Alistair Carmichael.
I thank the Chancellor's human shield for that answer. But I have to say that the fact that the Chancellor sitting on the Treasury bench wasn't prepared to stand up and answer for herself demonstrates a distinct lack of respect bordering on contempt for her farmers. Will she not meet the farming unions, the banks, the professional organisations, even the supermarkets themselves, to hear why they all think that her calculations are wrong? If the Minister wants to ask her before he stands up, I'm sure we'll all allow him a second or two.
Not the most dignified question from the Right Honourable Gentleman. Mr Speaker, I, on the Chancellor's behalf, have met numerous organisations about this matter, including those I listed a moment ago, including the Right Honourable Gentleman himself when he came to the Treasury to meet me, and, of course, extensive debates in this place. Mr Speaker, we may not agree on the way forward, but I don't think anyone can accuse us of not having listened.
Then good job.
Question number 6, Mr Speaker.
Minister, sir.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Increasing investment, both public and private, in the UK is the Government's absolute priority. It is the route to restarting badly needed productivity and wage growth. As the honourable member will know, at the International Investment Summit, companies committed to a record-breaking £63 billion worth of investments. This is set to help create around 30,000 jobs.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank the Minister for that answer, and particularly that it's their top priority, because on the 17th of October, the government announced that they had got this £63 billion, and we've heard from the Chancellor that she's going to act decisively. So I just want to check her track record on that. You've had 6 months, you've had £63 billion. How much money has gone out of the door for those oven-ready projects across the country?
Thank you for that question. Now, I'm a very good colleague of ministers, and will be excited to know that the Business Secretary will be announcing that some projects are already in the ground, shovels going into the ground in the coming weeks. And what I'm not going to do is preempt that today.
Matt Weston.
In a recent PwC survey, it showed that the UK is now the second most attractive investment destination amongst global chief executives, ahead of countries such as China, Germany and India. This shows that the government's careful stewardship of our economy has led to stability amongst the global landscape. Does the Chancellor agree with me that the UK is now open for business after years of Conservative chaos?
Well, my honourable friend consistently asks good questions that go to the heart of the matter. If I look back over the last 14 years, what I see is that British business investment has been the lowest in the G7 year after year, and we are going to put that right.
Question 8, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The growth mission is the central mission of this government. At the budget, we delivered a £1.1 billion cash increase to the transport budget for 2025-26 compared to 24-25, representing a 1.5% real terms increase. We will set out further spending plans for transport in June.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What value does my right honourable friend expect the recently announced and much anticipated Portishead and Pill railway line will add to the local economy of my constituency of North Somerset?
Firstly, can I congratulate my honourable friend for his campaigning on this issue and declare